G'day everyone, it's Mike from Battlefield Accessories introducing our range of row houses. So 15mm, 20mm and 28mm, all with detachable roofs and second stories. Highly detailed rear courtyards. A great piece of kit for your table. Tonight I'm going to show you how to build our new row house kit. Now the one I'm going to show you tonight is a 20mm version. There's going to be a 15mm version coming very soon, which the construction is going to be pretty much the same. So this is kind of the generic construction video for this whole kit. I'm going to break it down into a bunch of parts because as you look at the kit, there's removable roofs. There's 3 of those which are all the same. There's a second level building which is also the same, right? And then the backyards, the little outhouses and things are pretty much all the same. So I'm going to basically break it down into a series of steps. So, but before we get started, a few things that you need to have. Now with TTR stuff, in our old kits we were advising using PVA glue because that will basically absorb into the MDF. However, with the TTR stuff, the printing on the surface sort of inhibits the absorption of the PVA a little bit. So we're suggesting that you build your kits with super glue now. So of course super glue provides a few challenges. I always suggest a pair of rubber gloves. Right, I'm using Zapagap super glue. Some people like to use the one with the activator. That gives you really quick solid joints. I think that's a little bit a bit of a worry when you've got things that are going together with teeth, so I prefer just to use this. Plastic bag, proudly brought to you by Eureka Miniatures, our favourite miniature manufacturer. You just got a little plastic bag because there's going to be some times where I'm going to basically put the super glue out and then I'm going to experiment with this tonight. This is an artist's clay brush, I think. It's like a brush except there's rubber on the end there. And I'm just going to use that for various times just to scoop the glue on and stuff. I think it'll be more effective than a traditional brush because the traditional brush will kind of will go hard really quickly. So in terms of the kit, you get a wall sheet. Right, it's got wallpaper on the inside. That's a tip. The wallpaper side's the inside. Right, brickwork on the outside. There's a range of different pieces here which I'll talk you through as we go. There's also a set of external walls. So for the rear yard, they're tucked in here. Have a set of upper story roofs or upper story walls. You can tell they're the upper story because they've got the peak on them. Okay, again, they've got wallpaper in the inside. And just ignore this here, that's a little printing area. That's why I'm building this one. It's an industrial second. A floor piece, right? This one is single-sided. Okay, it's also got chimneys and one of the outhouses there, and these roof supports. Upper story floors, again single-sided. Okay, outhouses, some internal walls which I'll show you as we go through, and then finally a sheet of 1.5mm MDF which has got the roofs. It's got the gates for the back, which these pieces are double-sided, right? Doors for the outhouses and little tin roofs for the outhouses. Okay, so we're going to start by basically breaking all the pieces down and putting them into piles. Okay, so here we have a big pile of parts. Let's quickly go through them. So you have a baseboard, which you've put aside. As I've been working through, I've been putting aside all of the outhouses and those little bits because they're kind of extra bits we'll get to at the very end. You've got a pile of these triangular walls, right? And so 6 of those, you put those aside. You've got 3 bases. Again, you put them aside. You've got 2 long walls. Now, this one here is the front door. This is the back door. So these larger windows here are designed to be the front side. Now, you can put them in the other way around if you want to have the white door as the front door. Makes no difference to me. It's just how I've designed the actual model. Okay, so put those aside. In terms of the walls, you'll see you've got these ones that are this height, and then you've got these taller walls. All of these walls that are the shorter height are the back garden walls. So basically pile them up and put them away. We'll get to them later. And then you have finally these walls here. Now you've got 3 with the large windows and 3 with the short windows. So these ones here, or narrow windows, sorry, these ones are the front side of the building and these ones are the back side of the building. So there's 2 sets of 3. So basically if I'm looking at an upper story building, I'm going to take one of those, and 2 of these. Right, and hopefully I've made the wallpapers line up, which I have. And so in essence I'm going to do it the right way. Line them up like this. Right, and then the whole thing's going to close up on itself and make a building for us. Okay, so when you're working on these things here, sorry, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. The other walls that you have are these 2 straight ones, right? And these ones have got this little nib on them. Right, now the idea is that these are the anchors for the upper story, so as they don't slide off as you're playing. Right, so these 2 walls with the nibs on them are the ends of the 2 main buildings. Okay, so let's start with one of the upper story buildings. So I've got front windows, back windows. Now with all MDF kits, I always advise that you do a bit of a dry fit first. But these are actually very tight. Using new software to develop them at the moment, and it's very, very tight in terms of the joints, which is a good thing because it means you get a really solid model. Right, but it just means that you just got to be a little bit careful when you're putting them together, especially when we're using super glue, which can be a little bit unforgiving. Right, so just off camera there, I've just leant on that to make sure that that sits in nice and snugly. So what I'm going to do is pull the whole thing apart. So my process for this, everybody's going to have their own. And the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is put my gloves on. So the principle here is I'm going to run glue down these joints, right, and then a little bit on each of the little knobs that are sticking out, and so the whole thing will sit down on top of that. So this super glue's been a bit, I stuck a nail through the end of the tube, which means it runs a little bit quicker than is good for it. Now, you want to avoid getting your fingers on the ends where the glue is, because that will cause it to stick where the texture is, and which you don't want to do. Just always make sure if you're showing this to somebody, like making a demo video, always make sure that you have the room aligned the right way before you go put it on. So there you go. Right, I'm just giving those corners a bit of a press in. Right, and again, just going to eyeball them just to check that they're pretty good. And so the design of this is tabletop ready. So basically I've stuck this together with some super glue. It's dry in about a minute and I can now use it. It's ready to go. If you wanted to spend some more time, there'll be another video, but you could get some of your paint and just paint in a couple onto those corners if you wanted to go that extra mile to make the laser cuttingness disappear. Right, so there's one of those. So basically you're going to rinse and repeat and do 3 of those. They're all exactly the same. The end walls have a little bit of variation, so they're not exactly the same, right? But the internals are. So there's no kind of this one has to go here or any of that sort of stuff. They're all basically, as long as you go a front wall and a back wall, see back wall, front wall with the different style windows, that will work. You could put these the 2 larger windows and the 2 smaller windows. They have one of them which has got smaller windows and one of them with larger windows. The pieces are all interchangeable, so they're all mirrored images of each other. So they will work like that. It's just, again, as it's designed to have large ones at the front, small ones at the back. Okay, so I'm going to put all those away, and later through the magic of television I'm going to construct those off camera because you don't need to watch me build 3 of those. Let's go for the lower section. Now, so again, one of the things to watch out for here is make sure that all of the holes that are punched in the base are all clear. I've got one there that had a little bit of MDF remnant in it. So there it is. So front wall sits in these holes. Again, you can hear that's pretty snug. Back wall sits in the back set of holes. Now the idea is that the checkerboard floor is on the inside of the building, and then these 2 side ones with the dimples, again wallpaper in, obviously. They basically slide in on the sides. Yeah, I'm not. Basically, I would, if I was doing this not on camera, I would get in there and make sure that went in. That's going to go in okay. You just got to make sure before you put glue on that they're going to go in okay. But I'm not going to wrestle with it now because you're going to watch me pull it out. Right, so there's those ones, and then these wallpaper walls go into the slots either side here. And so the idea is that they slide down and pushing it hard across that way, and then the other one slides in on its back. And again, it's reasonably tight. You squeeze them together. So that's basically making the support wall for the upper story, which is going to sit in something like that. Right, and then there'll be 3 of those along. Right, so just so as you can see those. So you can see there's the 2 that I've inserted, and here's the gap. If I run that behind it, you'll see the gap. And I'm basically going to slot this in here, wallpaper side facing across, and then back to back another one on it, and slide that in. So of course I'm going to glue all that in, so let's do that right now. So for the base, again with my super glue, just on each of the spikes that are going into the base. Push them down firmly, and then just eyeball to make sure that they're all right. And it wouldn't hurt just to run your finger across the bottom if you've got any super glue that's sticking out. Nothing worse than having your model finished and then having it stuck to the kitchen table. Right, that probably doesn't earn you any brownie points. Right, that's done. Now for these internal walls, I'm just going to basically put glue in the joints. I've done this a couple of different ways. One option is to push them down together. I'm going to push them down one at a time. So I push it down, so it's down and across, and then do the same. You do need to work quickly on this one because if the super glue sets, it's game over. Down and across, and the second one in. Now, once I've pushed them in, push the whole thing together, because if you didn't line them up properly, it's going to push the building apart, which you want to avoid. Right, and then I'm just going to stand this up and just check. Right. Just didn't go in very nicely before when we were test fitting it, so just glue on a few of these. Probably less is more in this one. So I'm going to stand it up. Right, and you can see, hopefully you can see that there, I've got some liquid super glue on that. Right, so just going to be careful not to get that on my gloves, or I'm going to be changing gloves. Right, and so there we have the lower story built. Now we're going to move on to the back walls. Now there are these walls here that have basically got teeth on them and 2 spikes at the bottom. They form the 4 dividing walls. Okay, and they can basically go anywhere. So one at each end. The spike part of it is designed to be at the back wall. And if you think about how these are going to stand up, this one's got a bit of road scuff and stuff, so I want that facing out. It's quite clean on the inside, so that person's obviously looking after their yard. Again, this one's got some streaks, so I'm going to put that on the outside. They're designed so they can go anywhere, they're interchangeable. Right, but it doesn't hurt to have a look at your model and think about, well, how's this going to actually look? So they're going to sit there like that. You've then got, I'm just going to move those out for now, we'll put them here. You've got 2 end pieces, and I haven't really on the sprue shown you which one goes where, but I'll show you here. Each of these small openings is a gate, right? And so if you look at where the spike goes, and the teeth have got to match the corner, I've got that around the wrong way. So teeth have got to match the corner. It's obvious which one goes where. They basically don't fit in the other places. But this is why we dry fit, because you get glue on these and suddenly find they don't fit, and then you're in trouble. Now this one here, now I just happened to pick this up correctly, but I'll show you it in the wrong spot. So I can see the 2 spikes are in here, and that holes are lining up with the wall hole, so this wall's going to plug into that one. If I had this round the other way, you'll see that it doesn't fit. Right, and just to explain what that means, got the 2 spikes lined up, but this line of holes here is not lining up with that line of holes there, so it's got to go like that. And then same with this one here. That's it correct. That's it incorrect. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to do these end walls. Now again, I've checked and double checked and triple checked I got these right, because once you get these glued together, it's going to be hard to unglue them. Right. Okay, so I've got these ready to go. So again, dab of glue on the spikes. One spike is down near the houses. Done. Now, just to show you this, I've got a bit of glue on the very bottom of that spike, so I'm going to use my trusty Eureka bag here and wipe a little bit of that off. Now, I'm hoping I'm not drifting off the main part of the screen too often here. I can't actually see myself recording, so I'm periodically glancing over my shoulder to make sure I'm still in frame, but hopefully it's not too bad. Now with this end one here, make sure I'm giving that a bit of a run. With that end one, it's basically sliding in from the side, and so there's no spikes creaking or anything. Right, and so there we have the lower level done. Okay, so backyards, front yards. Now, backyard's not entirely done, so we'll now go to our thin sprue sheet, and I'll get these doors out now. And just basically spinning those on the middle and they come out. Right, there's no front or back on these, and you can glue them in however you want, and this is where my trusty Eureka bag's going to come in handy. So just put a little bit of super glue out there. Now, one option is just to dunk the edge and say the base in the super glue, and then just slide it into place. Now from the top down view on that, hopefully you can see that, I'm trying to get it somewhere in the middle, because if I put it flush to either side, you lose the depth effect of actually having it there. The other thing I like to do though is I like to have a gate open, right? So again, I've just glued the side and the base. I'm just basically going to drop it down there. Now, with less points of contact, it's going to be more susceptible to damage, as in, you know, your friends come around to play with your models and they're not as careful as you are. Right, but it definitely gives it a more of a lived-in kind of feel. Right, so these, you're going to have both of those gates open on this one. Okay, so there you have the lower level. If I combine that with the upper level, get around the right way, you can see how that goes. And if I grab some ones that I prepared earlier, right, there they are. Okay, so let's take those off for now. Let's have a quick chat about roofs. So the roof sheet comes with 3 longer size roofs and 3 shorter size roofs. So I'm just going to break out a pair of those at the moment. Again, you could, well, let's do it. So break them out, but keep them in their piles. Now the idea of these roof supports, right, is that they lock in. The roofs, the joint of the roof overlaps each other slightly, right, and these have these legs on them to stop the roof collapsing into the inside of the building or sort of flopping off. Right, so it's designed to hold the whole thing together. In terms of this, take a long one and a short one. Put them so as the short distance is towards the center. And when I say short distance, I mean this distance here and this distance here. So if I separate those, that distance and that distance, it's the shorter on both. Again, that's going to lock in here. And if you look here, the top edge of that peak and the top edge of that roof line up perfectly. If I look at the other one, right, what you'll see is there's an overlap of exactly 1.6 millimeters, which is the thickness of the material. So if the two things go together, right, they overlap beautifully like that. Okay. So let's go for a gluing procedure. I basically just glue down to the first join, or to where the little spike is. I'm going to do both of these at the same time. Okay, so tip it over, find the 2 holes and let it click down into place. And hear that nice gentle click. Now, you could, if you wanted to, run a line of super glue in that joint at the top, just to keep the whole thing together, but it's probably enough with the 2 faces joined. The only other thing I want you to do is to then set it flush and make sure that the 2 flat pieces of the roof, so if I put it like that, so it's not offset like that, because whilst the guides will hold it in place, They will allow up to 1/2 mil separation, and you really want it to be square. Right, so just make sure that those flat faces all the way across there are level. Okay, and then you can put that away to dry, and again rinse and repeat for the other roofs. Chimneys. The chimneys consist of a front and a back of the chimney, right, and a ring of bricks to go around the chimney. Now, it's probably a bit easier to see here, and again, it might be quite difficult for you to see at home, but when you've got one of these in your hands, you'll be able to see it. There's a little tag on each side of this thing holding it in place. Same with the chimneys. Now, if you just try and pull that out, there is a chance that it'll rip. So what I'm suggesting you do is get yourself a knife and just slide it down in the slot, just to break the surface of that tag, using the actual valley made by the laser as your guide. And all you're doing is you're just breaking the top layer of the MDF. So for those people who haven't made thousands of MDF models, one of the things, if the MDF hasn't cut through properly, it'll laminate or delaminate, so it'll basically pull the top surface off, which is not great if you've got a nicely printed model. Now you could, if you wanted to, you could do this with every piece of the kit. The joins are really hard to see on the printed side, but on the non-printed side they're pretty obvious. As you saw when I was de-spruing before, I don't normally bother doing that with these. It's only on these finer pieces that I think it's worth doing. I'm just working them out carefully. The other thing you can do here is you can break these sprues apart. Now I've said that it's not going to do. When I do the outhouses, I'll show you breaking sprues apart. Again, you're going to throw this sprue away, so there's nothing in here you actually need. So if you need to destroy it, that's okay. Okay, so I've got a ring and these chimney pieces. So the chimney pieces go together in pairs. Basically what I'm going to do is put the two pairs together like that, glue them, and then slide a ring on top. Now with the rings, one side is raw MDF, yuck. The other side is got a brick pattern on it. Right, and so you want to get that on there. Probably the easiest way to do this, once you've got these glued together, right, is to slide it in from on top. Now, you could leave it there. I like to slide mine down 1 mil or so, but again, very carefully and get it even, because if you pull down one side too hard, you'll rip the MDF out, which is not the end of the world because you can always glue it, but it's better to not have to do any of that sort of stuff. Right, so there's my sample chimney. Okay, so I'm going to glue one and show you that whole process again. Now, I've managed to get tons too much glue on that. Less is more by a lot. Because as you squeeze those two pieces together, you're going to get glue leak everywhere, and it's going to stick to your fingers. Even though you're wearing gloves, it's still going to be a problem. Again, making sure I've got my surround facing up the right way. I should have done what I've done with the other things. As you said, here's one. Just assume I've done the rest. Okay. Now, so in terms of the actual chimneys application, you could leave them off and leave them in the sprue and chuck them away. Or you just basically get your super glue, double glue in the bottom, right, and then whack them on top of the roof. Now they're designed to sit within the angle of the roof. My only suggestion would be do them all consistently, because row houses tended to be built in a consistent way. They're all cookie cutter versions of each other, so the chimneys tend to be on the same side. So if you had one in the middle and then one on the side, it might look a bit strange. So I tend to build them all the same, which is what I've done with my roofs that I've prepared earlier. Right, so there they sit, something like that. Okay, so that's chimneys. You could do silly things if you wanted to, like you could put two chimneys on one, right, and no chimneys on the others. It's all up to you. It's your kit. Now the outhouse consists of 4 pieces, so it's got a long wall, 2 side walls, and a back wall. Again, the best way to get these out is probably just to break the sprawl apart. Again, knife, just to take those out, just so as I don't delaminate the printing off the front of it. The other bits that go with this is I've got a front wall with a door on it, right, and I've got a roof. It's a little cast iron job. So the narrow wall, the shorter of these goes at the back, right, and the taller one goes at the front. Now I've got a bit of a burr there, so that's a bit of furry MDF. I'm just going to trim that back. Okay. So to do this, again, I'm going to come along each of the little knobs that's sticking out there, just a tiny bit of super glue on, and this is where I'm going to try using my little rubbery thing. Because you won't be able to see it on the video, but I've got a great big puddle of super glue underneath my front wall. Now, luckily for me, I know that in a second I'm going to cover up that front wall, so I'm not too concerned about it. Other than it makes it really yucky to build the thing. Okay, so I've got that. Now, I'm then going to come along and put a bit of glue on that front wall. Now, the front wall is the tallest of them. I'm going to come along with my door piece. Make sure I've got the handle in an appropriate place. And stick that over the top of the whole thing like that. Now, it's designed to sit flush at the bottom and have a gap at the top, because most outhouses tend to have a gap at the top. Right, and then finally, a run of super glue. Now, on the 2 angled sides, the front and the back sides won't tend to have much contact with the roof. Right, so run it on the 2 sides. Stick your roof in, and I would have it level at the back, right, and sticking out over the front, because the way that these outhouses go is they tend to be up against the real wall, right, so as the night soil cart can come along and open up the little thing and take the contents away. But again, you can put them wherever you like. You can not even have them if you want. Again, that's completely up to you. It is just a little feature of the 20mm kit. Likelihood is on the 15mm kit that it won't have the outhouses, because they become a lot of fiddling around at a reduced scale, and most people don't want to have tiny little buildings in that scale. So there it is. And so I'll bring you back the one I prepared earlier. So as you can see, I've got my 3 outhouses. I've got my different gates and stuff that I can configure as I want. Right, I've also got my extra buildings that I can put in, or extra stories I can put in place. Right, with my roofs. Again, making sure my chimneys line up the right way. Sitting there like that. Okay, and so as I'm playing, I can take out individual sections, so I can have guys in the bottom here, right, and have this bit off to the side. I can have guys in this section and so on. So the idea is that it gives you quite a lot of flexibility in terms of the actual game as you play. But these are also pegged in so as they're not going to slide off during play. So there you have, oh, sorry, one final thing. I'm not sure I said this before, but these you can basically choose to glue them in or not to. I've chose to keep mine flexible just so as I can show it off in videos like this. But it does mean that when you move your model around, things are going to fall over. So again, it might be one of those things that you fix in, and maybe you fix it in like this, so you got a little spot there for a guy to sculpt in a defense. So this is a 20mm row house set. And you see, it's a really nice kit. In terms of measurements, 24 centimeters, right, by 16, and the peak is about 11 centimeters up. So it's quite a nice sizable piece for your table. And I might put some stills up at the end of this video of 3 or 4 of these together to show what they look like. Okay, thanks. See ya.